US and British warplanes are reported to have carried out 17 airstrikes in western Yemen. Media linked to Houthi forces say the port city of Hodeidah and other coastal areas were hit. They're the latest in weeks of Allied strikes in response to months of Houthi missile attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. Well, the US military says retaliatory strikes were launched after Houthi fighters failed to hit a container ship in the Red Sea. The US says a maritime drone and anti-ship missiles were destroyed. The Houthis want an immediate end to Israel's war on Gaza and are warning that attacks on shipping will escalate during Ramadan.
The Yemeni armed forces confirmed that their military operations will be escalated with the help of God the Almighty during the month of Ramadan, the month of jihad, in support of the oppressed Palestinian people and for our warrior brothers in the Gaza Strip.
11 Filipino crewmen who were on a ship that was attacked are due to arrive home soon. 3 of their colleagues were killed in a missile attack last week on the bulk carrier True Confidence. They're the first fatalities since Houthis began their attacks in November last year. Let's speak to Christian Buega. He's a professor of international relations at the University of Copenhagen, also the director of Safe Seas, a network for maritime security research. He joins us now from Port Louis in Mauritius. Good to have you with us. Many say it was only a matter of time before these Houthi attacks in the Gulf of Aden caused fatalities. Could this ship, True Confidence, have been better protected in any way?
Well, the ocean is one of the most dangerous workplaces in the world. Many seafarers actually die every year, and quite obviously, the recent Houthi attacks add to this danger. There's relatively little the ship could actually have been doing, but it shows us how ineffective the naval defense at the moment still is.
I was going to ask you about that, because there are 2 military operations in the Gulf of Aden already, one from the US, one led by the US, one led by the EU. How difficult is it to restore safe passage? I mean, it's one of the world's busiest shipping routes, and yet they can't seem to protect these ships from attacks.
Well, first of all, it's important to recognize that there are more naval missions out there. Yes, the European Union has a multinational naval mission, and the Americans operate in the framework of combined maritime forces. But there are also the Indian Navy is there, the Chinese Navy is there, but all of this together is not enough. It shows us how vulnerable global transport is towards such attacks. And this is why it's so important that at the moment also decisive action is being taken to avoid that this will be replicated elsewhere in the world.
Is it better for ships to avoid this route?
Well, at the moment, absolutely. We now had the first fatality, and it was about to happen. We have one ship that is now rotting on the ocean ground and will destroy the marine biodiversity. And probably we are going to see more dead seafarers and more ships sinking. So by all means, the less shipping that goes through the Red Sea right now at the moment, the better. And in particular, over the last weeks, we see an intensification of Houthi strikes. So there's an escalation going on at the moment.
You mentioned that ship that was also hit on the bottom of the Red Sea at the moment. That was full of fertilizer, which is now being discharged into the ocean. As you say, that's an environmental disaster happening there. This latest ship, the True Confidence, has also been left adrift, hasn't it? What happens to that now? Can it be salvaged?
It has to be salvaged, because otherwise we are looking at another oil spill. Let's not forget that the Houthis are also most likely damaged for subsea data cables, right, which are now damaged, and an indirect consequence of the Houthi attacks. And drifting ships can cause all sorts of damages. And this is really an area that we also need to pay much more attention to, the environmental side, and how is the Red Sea going to suffer the fish and the biodiversity from that.
And just lastly, you mentioned before that seafarers, sailors, it's one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. What can be done to better protect sailors?
Well, one of the key challenges here is that many shipping companies still prefer so-called flags of convenience or open registries, where there's actually relatively little enforcement of the international rules. That needs to stop, and basically the shipping industry also needs to ensure that the rules are actually being followed. That will not reduce the risks from a Houthi attack, but overall there is still a lot of substandard shipping around, and this needs to be tackled.
Okay, Christian Buger, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for taking the time to join us here on Al Jazeera.
Pleasure.